Hi guys, and welcome to this edition of Phyrefli's Video Digest. As always, thank you very much for watching. Now before I start, you'll see that there's a link at the bottom of your screen. That links off to a cracking game that I played last weekend in BF3tournament.com. Now this video is going to be mainly about me talking with my face on your screen. So if that doesn't exactly float your boat, click on that link, it'll open a new tab, and you can watch that game as you're listening to me in the background. Everyone wins. Now the last digest, number 15, was all about what we've lost in Battlefield and why for some inexplicable reason DICE took those things out. This edition of the digest is about who's to blame, plus what DICE can do to make things better. And by making things better, I'm not saying simply give us mod tools, because that's not going to work. I'm talking about other things. So if you're enjoying that gameplay, I hope you enjoy it very much. If you don't watch that video, please watch it at the end of this, because it was an absolutely cracking game. And in the meantime, let's move on to the first segment of this week's edition of the digest, and let's talk about why things went wrong and who's to blame. Now the why things were dumbed down in Battlefield 3 is really easy to understand, and we all know what the reasons were. They wanted to make it a simpler game so that more people could get into it quickly without having to worry about pesky little things such as the commander role and squad leading. It might make sense from DICE's point of view, but there's a small little error in their thinking, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So that deals with the why. They wanted to make it a simpler game, easier to get into, more sales, more masses. But who's to blame for that? Now I read a lot of things on the forums where you get single line posts where people are saying consoles are to blame, COD players are to blame, this is to blame, that is to blame. You know what? All of those posts are wrong, and I'll explain to you why. No console developed this game. No console turned around and said, let's have a completely consoleized menu system. DICE could quite easily have developed their own UI specifically for the PC to take advantage of what the PC can do. Now I'll give you an example of why the menu system is so consoleized. The join squad button, which at the moment kind of floats at the bottom right of the main menu in the UI. In the alpha and the beta, when I was playing that with squad mates and clan mates, quite often I actually had to explain to them where the darn thing was. It was just floating in the middle of nowhere. That was just plonked in because DICE realised it had to have that. So DICE are the ones that are to blame for having such a consoleized menu. And that same thing goes on through the rest of the game. The size of the maps was not determined by a console. The fact that a lot of the flags are clustered so closely together was not determined by a COD player. All of these things were done by DICE, and DICE had the opportunity of making things different for the PC than it does for the console. DICE also had the opportunity of saying, well, hey, let's get the flags a little bit wider. Let's do this, let's do that. DICE are the ones that decided to do these things, not consoles or COD gamers or whatever. So when you're assigning blame for the failures of Battlefield 3 and how it's changed from the earlier iterations, Battlefield 2, 2142, 1942, etc., don't go blaming spurious things. Make sure that you blame the right thing, and that's DICE for the decisions that they took. Now going back to the why, one of the things that I can't understand is at the moment we have squad leaders spawning. Now in a server side, you have a server side setting for that, so you can decide if you want squad leader only spawning on or if you want it turned off. The default is off, and that's fine. Because we've got the option to do that, we can then have servers like the one I play on quite a lot, which is the Dead Friends server, where it's squad leader only spawning, and that makes it, in my opinion and most vets' opinion, the best way of doing it. So why couldn't DICE have included an option for on the server side for a commander role, or other similar things that were missing, such as vehicle aura? So for example, if you were an engineer in a vehicle, you could repair close vehicles. Now I know that some people don't like that and some people do, but you can't deny that it certainly helped teamwork in keeping convoys of vehicles together rather than having tanks flying off in all directions doing their own thing and generally always getting destroyed. So there are quite a few options that DICE could have added as server side, and that would have really helped and brought the team play in, but they didn't. And it just seems to be one of those weird things where you're thinking, You had an opportunity there, Dice. You could have actually had your core audience, and you could have had all of the new guys you want to bring in. You could have made everybody happy by giving them the options that they want. Instead, you squandered that opportunity, and now you've got most of the vets on your back making videos like the one that I'm making today, making posts in the forums, and a lot of people saying, we ain't buying 2143 or Battlefield 4. That's an opportunity Dice missed, and I'm really hoping that they take advantage within the patch of fixing some of that stuff. For example, spectate mode. It can't be that hard to put a spectate mode in a game like Battlefield 3. That alone would make a big difference, because we could have casting again. There's lots of other things. A battle recorder as well is one thing which I genuinely think should be in. It needs to be in. Not only for montages or for gameplay, but also for esports and things like that. These are things that we really wanted. Now, I mentioned earlier about esports and Zinto, and I actually think there's one reason why we're not seeing that much information from Zinto these days. And without putting too fine a point on it, I think the poor guy got hung out to dry by DICE. Now that sounds quite a dramatic accusation, but just think about it for a second. He did talk quite a bit about esports many months ago, before the game came out. And then he released a tweet about a week ago which said at that time esports was something that the company was concentrating on. That's great. We all thought, brilliant, we can finally have a Battlefield game that can take over from Battlefield 2. We can get ESL and all these kind of things playing. Fantastic. What happens? No esports support within Battlefield 3 whatsoever. This is something that DICE missed, but I've got a strong suspicion that now that Zinto is watching quite literally every word that he says, because he wants to make sure that whatever he's told is right, because he doesn't want to look like a muppet again. And that's exactly how he looked, through, I strongly suspect, no fault of his own. I know I do tend to back Zinto quite a lot, and I've said before, I've dealt with him on a one-on-one. I've found the guy great to deal with, but he's trapped between a rock and a hard place, because he really should only give us finished information. And if DICE are chopping and changing, or themselves aren't even sure what they're doing, what's Zinto supposed to do? If he's intelligent, he does the right thing. He keeps his mouth shut and only tells us things that are genuinely in. So, that's the end of that section. Bit of a rant, sorry about that, but I do hope that you agree with what I'm saying about who's responsible and why they're responsible for what's happened to Battlefield 3. So the next section I'm going to talk, at least I'll try and talk a bit more briefly, about what DICE can do to make it better. Now there are two main things that DICE can do to change things in its relationship with the community and to make things better. In fact, the first one doesn't even cost a penny. It's that easy, and it's summed up in one word: communication. Let us know what the heck's going on. Now personally, I don't have an issue if the patch takes 2 or 3 months, as long as I know what's being worked on and what's likely to be in it. It's simple information and letting people know. By leaving a vacuum and not actually saying anything, you just leave it open to wild assumptions and people assuming different things and speculating all the time. Feed us information, even if it's something along the lines of, we're looking at the battle recorder, but we might not have it in. Or we're looking at commander role, but we might not have it in. Or spectate mode is a definite no. Take mod tools for example. Right at the beginning you said no mod tools. There will be no mod tools at all, and that's fine. You've made it very clear. The reaction from the community probably wasn't too good because we all expected it with BF3. But you've made your stance clear. There's no comment, no wavering on that. This is the situation, it's done. And that I can respect because it's making the situation clear. But a lack of information, with the exception of one set of patch notes over what, 3 months now? No, that's not a good thing. So DICE, please do work on your communication. Give Zinto the information that he needs and the leeway that he needs to be able to communicate to us, to let us know what's going on. You'll find us mollified a lot more, and things will change from DICE are a real big pain in the butt and they're no good as a company and EA is a devil incarnate, to shouldn't the L85 have a wider spread? So bring your communication up into the 21st century and show the other companies out there how it's done and how well you work with us. Now the second thing that you can do to make it right is to actually patch in the things that you're missing. I'm talking about spectate, battle recorder, commander, all the rest of it. Now in all honesty, I don't expect you to do that. I remember when BC2 came out, that was a bastard of a game, you'll have to excuse my French. What a disaster that was at the start. But by the end of it, most people actually thought it was a good game for what it is, as long as you understand it's a PC port of a console port of a PC game. You can do the same thing with BO3. You can pull back a lot of those vets that are getting really annoyed and really tired by simply saying, right guys, spectate mode we're looking at, we hope to get it in patch number 2. Battle recorder is a definite yes, it's coming out in patch number 1. Mod tools, we know that's a definite no. Commander role is a definite no. Just give us that information, tell us what you're aiming to get in, even if you don't know the exact date it's going in, and keep us up to date. We never know, we might even be able to give you good feedback on it. Anyway, that's the end of that section of the video, so I'll move on to the next one. Thank you. That's it for this edition of Phyrefli's Video Digest. Thank you very much for watching. I did rant a little bit in that one, I apologise. I do hope you enjoy it, and I hope you have comments on what I've said. If you're watching the gameplay video, which the link was in the bottom of the screen, I hope you're enjoying that as well. If you didn't watch it, please do so, as it was a very good game. Now as always, if you've enjoyed watching this video, please like it, and if you've really enjoyed it, please sub it. I do check every single person that subs to me, and if you've got some great videos on your channel, I'll sub back. In the meantime, thanks again, enjoy your gaming, and take care.